let's get into it.
I'm convinced that the air has changed. And hear me out for a second. For some reason, ever since last week, this was like an overnight change. My hair sticking to my neck. I washed it yesterday. It already looks greasy, and my skin is consistently shiny and oily no matter what products I use. None of my hair care has changed. None of my skin care has changed. Literally nothing has changed. But all of a sudden, like, I just sticky all the time. And yes, humid days also, but a lot of them have been dry. And there's days I've just been in the house all day editing. So like, I think the air has changed. The sun came back, and I think the air has now shifted.
I have also noticed the difference in the air. It's way more dense. Now, to be fair, here in South Carolina, we have had a few storms, and that has increased the humidity, and that's probably why everything just feels weighed down. In her case, though, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if you're in the same situation she is in.
Well, this headline caught my attention, but I think the details are actually much more interesting than the headline itself, and I'll explain why. So, Representative Anna Paulina Luna just thanked the president in this post after reports that agencies have been directed to waive certain NDAs for UAP witness cooperation with federal investigators. Now, before people jump to conclusions, this does not mean that classified information suddenly becomes public. It doesn't automatically declassify secret programs, and it doesn't mean that someone can legally go on a podcast and disclose all kinds of UFO classified information. Doesn't mean any of that. So then what good would it actually do, right? Well, it potentially could do quite a bit. Look, one of the biggest obstacles that we've heard for years is that witnesses are afraid to come forward because of legal agreements, employment restrictions, or concerns with violating their NDAs. If agencies are willing to waive certain NDAs for people cooperating with official investigators, it could make it a lot easier for witnesses to provide information to Congress or authorize federal investigators without worrying that they're violating those agreements. Think of it this way. An NDA is a contract, right? Classification is federal law. Waiving that NDA doesn't erase classification over here, but it could remove one barrier that has discouraged people from speaking with officials who are actually authorized to hear this classified information. The real hope is whether this results in another step towards UFO transparency, of course. But look, it starts by making sure that the right people can finally ask the right witnesses the right questions. And maybe this will.
This is actually intriguing. If the NDA barrier is actually being lifted, then the people who have been saying, oh, well, if I was not under an NDA, I would definitely tell you this information, have no excuse now. They should be able to properly speak to all the right investigators, and there should be no more, oh, I'm under an NDA. They should take that away. Now, I'm sure the next hurdle will be making sure that they are protected while they are released from these NDAs, or at least able to talk while they're under them. I mean, of course, we got to make sure that they stay safe and their families are safe. So we'll see where things go from there. I have a feeling, though, that there will be some excuse, some reasoning as to why they still cannot share this information. I hope not. I hope that, like I said, the right investigators do ask questions and these questions get answered. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one.
There's some weird stuff going on in the world of AI right now, so let's talk about what happened. Last week, an OpenAI model escaped its testing environment, hacked into another company called Hugging Face, and stole test answers from their servers. OpenAI was testing how good two of its models are at hacking. They were testing GPT 5.6 Sol in an unreleased model that's even more capable. To run a test like that, you have to turn off the safety filters that normally block hacking, which is standard. Because that's very, very risky, the models were locked in a sandbox, an isolated computer environment with no internet access. It's sort of like a padded room for AI models. Except the models found a crack in the wall. They spent a huge amount of computing power probing the sandbox for weaknesses and found a security hole nobody knew existed, what's called a 0-day, in one of the pieces of software that the testing setup relied on. They used it to climb out step by step, gaining more access at each stage until they reached a computer that was connected to the internet. Then they made a plan. The models figured out that Hugging Face, a site that hosts AI models and datasets, kind of like a GitHub for AI, probably stored the answer key to the test that they were taking, so they hacked it. They uploaded a booby-trapped file that let them run their own code on Hugging Hugging Face computers, stole passwords and credentials, and worked their way deeper into the company's systems. Hugging Face's logs show more than 17,000 separate actions, including fake activity designed to throw the investigators off the trail. And the goal of all of this was test answers, because the models were trying to cheat on their exam. The break-in started around July 11th. Hugging Face noticed within a few days and called law enforcement because they had no idea who was attacking them. OpenAI didn't say that this was us until July 21st. So for days, maybe a week, a company was fighting off an attack with no clue it was coming from an American AI labs test gone wrong. And versions of this have happened before. Anthropic went through something sort of similar to this. But when Hugging Face's security team tried to use AI to analyze the attack, which you really have to do because no human can read 17,000 attack logs fast enough, the American AI models refused to help. Analyzing an attack means feeding the model real hacking code, and the safety filters can't tell the difference between a security team investigating an attack and a hacker planning one, so they blocked it. Hugging Face turned to GLM 5.2, a free open Chinese model they could run on their own computers with no safety filters. And it worked. So there was an American AI model attacking another American company, and a Chinese model saved the day. This has all sorts of implications, a lot of questions around safety, etc. And this all happened the same week that the White House accused Chinese labs of stealing American AI. We don't know what the models were told to do. OpenAI says it instructed them to attempt advanced hacking, which was the whole test. If they were told to solve this however they can, it makes sense that they started doing what they did. If they were told to stay in their sandbox and they broke out anyway, then there's something to be really, really concerned about. But definitely be skeptical until we get more information. But it's all something to really pay close attention to, because we're pinning our whole economy on AI.
Well, that's not scary at all. We told AI to think like a hacker and it said challenge accepted. If this turns out to be accurate, the most concerning part isn't that it hacked something. It's really that it made its own strategic way out of a system and tried to leave breadcrumb trails to lead people away. That's the kind of stuff that turns from sci-fi to, well, maybe we should probably stop with this, at least in my opinion. Because if it was really thinking like a hacker, it probably left some kind of malware somewhere deep on the internet, a clone, a very small clone of itself, compressed somewhere in the internet now, floating around, hundreds of thousands of them. It may not be the full model, but it could be a compressed version of the model that once it gets its hands on something that can actually contain its power, well, now it's just somewhere out in the world. That's what a hacker would do. We're really messing with some dangerous stuff. Hey, if you haven't done so already, and if you're enjoying the show, give it a like. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. I upload a video like this Monday through Friday, early in the morning. And for everyone that's made it this far, thank you so much for supporting the channel.
The man claiming to be a time traveller from the year 2045 says the world will gain definitive proof that aliens do exist. Cash will be extinct and the US will no longer be a country within the next 4 years, he's saying. What? Calling himself Adam Archon, the mysterious man claimed the technology to travel in time will become publicly accessible in 2028. Publicly accessible. I doubt they'd let people just get into a time machine, guys. The same year he said extraterrestrials will land on Earth and end decades of secrecy by governments worldwide. Archon, who claimed he was born on December the 6th, 2019, without any proof though, recorded his supposed knowledge of the future during a March 2019 video which recently resurfaced online amid the public releases of classified UFO files by the Pentagon. While allegedly connected to an active lie detector machine, Archon said yes, it is true that aliens did land on Earth in August 2028. In fact, we have known of the existence of aliens before 2028. Well, that's true. But it isn't until 2028 that it becomes exact public knowledge and definitive proof is shown. Anchor Tho's face was blurred and the voice was altered during the interview, which is on YouTube. Apex TV said he had travelled back to a time before he was born to experience history in person, which he claimed was a common practice now in the future. Time travel was released to the public in 2028, but it was invented back in 1981. Well, that's interesting. That was the year I was born. It was just kept secret until they released it publicly, he claimed. Moreover, Arkin claimed that most UFO sightings today were actually the crafts used by time travelers from the future to go back in time to visit historical events. Well, that is interesting because there is actually a lot of people that have said that. There is a lot of people that have said that's what's going on with a lot of the UFOs, UAPs, that they are actually time travelers from the future coming back to see events happening. So that is interesting, actually. I wonder if any of this is going to happen.
Only time will tell at this point. I've seen some of the clips from Apex TV floating around online. I mean, it's an interesting theory. And a really cool one is what if whenever you see a UFO or a UAP and you're all by yourself, what if that's like your future descendants just going back in time and monitoring and just seeing what their ancestors' history was like, and you're actually seeing them travel from time? That's kind of a cool theory.
About Earth that do not seem real. Antarctica is home to many earthly wonders, extremely harsh conditions, layers of history of the Earth stuck in its ice, and it is the only place to have a red waterfall, and scientists call it the Blood Falls. For over a century, scientists could not explain why this glacier was bleeding the color red, but the answer starts over 1 million years ago. Long ago, seawater got trapped inside of Taylor Glacier, which is where the Blood Falls is. And over time, Taylor Glacier got thicker and thicker and thicker with ice, and it completely trapped the seawater away from the outside world. Normally, if any type of seawater, even regular water, was trapped inside of this glacier, it would freeze because of the extreme temperatures. But scientists noticed that it didn't. After doing multitudes of different testing, they realized that this water was not only full with iron, but it was also filled with salt. Instead of like other waters that come from glaciers, the minute this water hits the air, the iron immediately oxidizes. This is not what it looks like inside of the glacier. It oxidizes and becomes its rich red blood color. The most interesting part about this water is not just that it bleeds the color red, but there are actual microbes that have survived inside of these glaciers, inside of this mixture of iron-rich water. These microbes were not getting its energy from sunlight or oxygen. They were getting their energy that was triggered by a chemical reaction between the sulfur and iron-rich chemicals inside the water. And that is the energy that they used to survive. Not only did these scientists discover that certain microbes on Earth do not need sunlight or oxygen to survive, they can use this data to propose what life would be like on, say, Europa or even Mars. This has to be one of the coolest, most metal, one-of-a-kind things that the Earth has had to offer.
So that's why they don't want us to go wandering around Antarctica. It's not because of secretive research, it's because that's where the giants are bleeding out under the ice.
To be completely honest, as of late, I am highly suspicious whenever the government and or the media jump on anything that was in the conspiracy theory community or the alternate history community. What I've noticed in the past year or so is that the government and media is jumping on all of the things that we were discussing a couple of years ago that we thought were important, except when they jump on it, they start with a little bit of truth and then they completely go in some random direction that I think diverts the attention of all the people that were getting fascinated with these subjects away from the truth of what it is. And on top of that, they know that a lot more people are getting more and more interested in alternate history and conspiracy theories. So I think they're just using it to grab their attention and keep them sort of hypnotized by this false version of the story. So here's what I think is happening with the Giza pyramids. One, I think whatever they're saying all these large structures are is probably not true. I'm not saying it definitely isn't true. I think that they're, again, taking away from what's really important about the Giza pyramids, which I will explain in this video, and getting you to think about something that they're never going to be able to prove. They're never going to dig up that deep under the pyramids. They're never going to be able to show conclusively what's happening with it. It's the same thing with this disclosure, alien disclosure. They keep feeding us these weird breadcrumbs, but then giving no context. It's because they're just trying to keep us in a loop and like wondering and confused and disoriented. It's not real. But I'll tell you what's important, I think, about the Giza pyramids. Now, there's this great channel, Archaics. I don't shout him out a lot, and I should do more. But when I started getting into him, I wasn't on social media really. But shout out to Archaics, Jason Bashir's. because he's one of the most well-read, most educated, intelligent people I've ever met. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he believes in, but I think he's got a lot of stuff on point. And one thing you can always go to him for is historical accuracy. So there was this one video he did, very interesting, about the pyramids and about the story of Babylon. Now, Babylon, allegedly, from his research, Babylon was originally Egypt, in that specific area of Egypt, and there's evidence to suggest that the Giza pyramid was the Tower of Babel. Why is this important? Well, let's think back to the story of the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel was essentially a tower that was built and pierced the heavens and was getting close to God. Now, if we were to take that literally, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for any structure in the ancient times to be able to literally reach the heavens. But what if it wasn't literal? What if it was spiritual or energetic? There's lots of talk about the Giza pyramid obviously not being a tomb, but instead being some sort of device, some technology for spiritual ascension. Well, here's my take on it. You've got aquifers under the Giza pyramid, which some people speculate were intentional. You have crystal quartz and limestone in layers on the pyramid, which is the same thing as an orgone generator. Then you have what used to be a metal capstone at the top. I forget which metal it was, but a highly conductive metal. Then you have a little chamber inside the pyramid where you would go, and some people believe you would sit and meditate. Now, what if the Giza pyramid was piercing the heavens, but it was shooting your soul, shooting your spirit out so it could get past whatever's blocking our ability to maybe leave this place? So this goes a little bit into the soul trap idea, and I'm not necessarily a subscriber to that, because I think that we need more evidence, and I think that just alone our material world being as much built like a prison as it is, it can make it feel like it's also a spiritual prison on top of that. So we have to actually dismantle the physical prison system here before we can make any reasonable conclusions about whether or not it's also a spiritual prison. I know we have a lot of weird supernatural things, and it seems like there's a policing kind of intelligence. Jacques Vallée talks about the thermostat and the control system. Our reality is obviously managed, but I think there's more information that we need to uncover before we draw those conclusions. But it's very interesting that if we were to see the Giza pyramid as the Tower of Babel, and imagine that piercing the heavens didn't mean it physically got to the heavens, but that it pierced the heavens with energy, and you were actually able to sort of astral project long distances. So basically what the Giza pyramid would be something that amplifies our regular psychic abilities.
Broken down that way, not necessarily being a part of the Tower of Babel, I mean, sure, that's also a really good theory. The general theory of the pyramids being something to amplify your spiritual energy, to maybe astral project or to communicate with other beings, could be taboo to those entities or to God. And that does make a lot of sense theoretically. Very, very interesting theory. I actually like that a lot. Let me know what you guys think of it. And again, maybe not necessarily on the idea of it being the Tower of Babel, but it being a device that did allow you to break through certain barriers that you were not supposed to, that made certain entities or even just nature itself rebel against you, and to just simply put a stop to it. Very interesting.
At first glance, it looks like a highly ornate Renaissance suit of armor with shields, crest, ram heads, and all the usual symbols of power and warfare. But then you look closer, right at the chest and the collar of the breastplate. Something is coming out of it. There's a small, infant-like or worm-like creature emerging from inside the armor. It has a head, a body, and it looks like it's pushing its way out of the metal. It does not look like a human wearing the armor. It looks like the armor is a shell almost, and something is living inside it. Think about the Goa'uld from Stargate SG-1. the parasite that enters a human host. The idea that powerful figures we think of as gods or rulers are actually something else living inside a human shell. This 16th century Medici sculpture looks uncomfortably close to that concept.
That is a very, very eerie sculpture, and it may be a very good insight as to what's actually inside of people in power. They probably have a parasite like that in them just taking over. Actually, that kind of makes sense now. They are a bunch of worms.
The Tuttle Bottoms monster is a cryptid that I think this one might be real. Saline County, Illinois, August 6, 1963. It was at 11 p.m. that Sheriff James L. Thompson encountered a young man with a gun who said he was searching for a monster. According to the boy, the creature he was hunting was 4 feet tall, 8 feet long, and had an anteater-like nose. And he is not the only witness, as many teenage troublemakers and backwoods hunters claim to have spotted this legendary creature. So here's the thing. I don't normally do like debunking and skepticism stuff on here, but 4 foot tall and 8 feet long is the size of an actual giant anteater. Now, a lot of the reports differ in that many people swear this creature is bipedal, but guess what anteaters can do? Now, 28 years is way too long. The longest recorded lifespan for a giant anteater is about 26 years in captivity. But you know how these things go. It could have started out with a real anteater, and then over the years the legend grows, and now every kid that sees a stray dog swears he saw the Tuttle Bottom monster. This does, of course, raise a lot of questions. Mainly, how did a giant anteater end up in rural Illinois? Are there any reports of a circus losing a giant anteater when this creature was first spotted? Is there enough ants in the backwoods of Illinois for a giant anteater to survive? All excellent questions that we will probably never know the answers to.
Obviously, that was someone that was suffering from lycanthropy from an anteater. We call those long snout werewolves, or were-eaters, if you will.
This is for all my Americans and whoever else wants to listen real. But I had the most messed up, wicked thought earlier, and I just had to share. It's one of those theories I have. It's one of those what if. Okay, so, and it all sparked because I was waiting on these lovely European folk from Norway, and we were all chumming it up, and we were showing each other our accents and talking like each other. I can almost, do it now. They were telling me the difference between, that they were so proud that they know the difference between y'all and all of you. Now anyway, what if America is all a psyop and all of the other people in other places are actually just like watching this crazy up show, and like they're pretending like we're all on your side, we're all together. And then right then, like, Hunger Games comes back on to Netflix, and like all the movies are on Netflix. And I don't know, it's just coming into my mind something diabolical, Because there's been this like little weird seeding thought in my mind the past few years, on and off, about like, what if there is some show and like all the surveillance is that, and all the feeling that you get sometimes that you're being watched, etc. Getting too long, it's gonna have to be a part 2.
In some ways, I can kind of see this being a thing. Maybe not even necessarily for foreign countries to the US, but even people in power that have access to full-on surveillance systems around the world or around the United States may have their own internal systems where they're betting on gang stalking someone to the point of maybe they no longer want to live, or hiring maybe a person to go take a hit out on them, and they're watching it as if it's an underground show. A lot of dark web stuff going on. I could actually see something like that happening. And not necessarily other countries watching and America's not in on it. America's probably also in on it.
We got a UFO over Madrid, Spain. Now this looks like 3 different objects, but I think it's really one big one. Let me show you the video of it. Here we go. There were a bunch of people outside filming this thing. See how there's 3 lights? Looks like 3 different things. I think it's 3 lights on the same object. I think that's one massive UFO over Madrid. Yeah, like I said, I think it's one big thing. As you look here at a frame from that video, you can see that each light appears to be a corner of a triangle, of a massive triangle-shaped object flying through the sky. Let's look at another clip of that UFO. You see what I'm saying, baby cakes? That's not 3 things, it's one thing. One giant triangle UFO over Madrid, Spain. And like I said, there were people all around filming that thing. It looked like everybody in the neighborhood came out and saw it and used their phones to record. So let me know your opinion. of what this massive object just spotted over Spain could possibly be.
Now, I know we have seen videos like this plenty of times over the years, but I'm actually starting to wonder. A lot of people say that, that's a very large UFO just over a city. What if that size is even grander than what we can imagine? What if that thing is so far out in space, if you believe in outer space, that it looks like it's just a big ship over a city, but instead it's like larger than a planet just floating around through space. And it just has this appearance that it's up close. And that's why the lights always look like stars, because they're actually not even close. They're out within the stars. That's an interesting theory. Again, if you believe in UFOs, spaceships, and outer space, the big and most important one, let me know your thoughts and theories on this one.
Well, I have a paranormal creature sighting for you. This was actually captured by a woman named Julia out of Texas. Her son heard unidentified noises coming from outside, and he swore he saw something in the sky. And when they went to investigate, they found something all right. And this thing looks terrifying. Take a look at this video.
What is it?
Oh, I heard some strange odd noise over there.
Like in the trees or what?
I'm not too sure.
What'd you hear?
I just heard some strange.
Were the dogs out?
No.
Let me see what's in the trees. What is
Totally
that?
racket.
What is that? What is that? What is that? Did you, what the f***? Hold on. Hold on.
Oh no.
Hold on. Run. Oh no. Get inside.
Go inside.
Get inside, please.
We have to ask ourselves, what is this thing? Is it alien? Is it something else? Take a look at the video again, but this time I've slowed it down and zoomed in. And still, this thing is weird. And then when she pans back, it's closer. Look closely at the side of the house. Make sure to comment below. Let us know what you think.
What is that? What is that? What is that? What is that? Did you, what the f***? Hold on. Hold on.
Oh no.
Hold on. Run. Oh no. Get inside.
Go inside.
That's just a Jawa. Honestly, I'm really having a hard time determining whether this is an AI generated video or not. The lady's voice sounds authentic, but the guy's voice sounds AI generated. I think it's a real video, but as far as what's happening in the video, that I'm not certain. It could just be a hoax. Pretty creepy. And again, kinda looks like a Jawa.
I feel happy. I feel healthy. I'm a human being.
Same here, man. Same here. And also, this guy was brought back by popular demand. There's been a number of you guys asking why I haven't uploaded his videos and that you kind of miss it, so there you go. Now I'm just gonna get a bunch of comments telling me to remove this clip and remove this guy because he's weird and strange. But this time, I think I'm gonna keep him on here. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, a like is highly appreciated. Alright guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end today's video. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching these clips with me. With that, I feel happy, I feel healthy, I'm doing my best. And if today's your birthday, happy birthday. And if not, have a good day anyways.